Dino's party arrived in the sky above the battlefield and learned of Milim's defeat. Dino, trying to hold back his temper, attempted to join under Benamera's command, but Feldway chased after them. Wait. What is it? Planning to get in our way? Look, we're busy here. Read the room. Dino and the others' reaction to Feldway was cold. They made no attempt to hide their annoyance, looking visibly disgusted. However, Feldway didn't care. Not considering other people's feelings or thoughts was Feldway's flaw, as well as a virtue. Answer my question. Do you think Lord Veldanava desired this situation? Ha! I believe that he loved this world. That is why I expected that if I directed malice towards this world, he would resurrect to stop it. Dino and the others were merely bewildered by Feldway suddenly talking about himself. They wanted to move to rescue Milim, but here was an outrageous nuisance. They had switched to a network conversation via thought communication, so the passage of time wasn't a huge concern. But even so, it felt like a damper had been put on their mood, leaving Dino and the others feeling like this conversation really didn't need to happen right now. Perhaps out of frustration, Pico inadvertently retorted. And if he didn't resurrect, what were you planning to do? Feldway reacted to this question with a weary sigh. I haven't asked a crucial question yet, but I shall answer you first. Naturally, I plan to reconstruct the world and build an ideal society that I would manage perfectly this time. If the management of the world had been entrusted to me from the beginning, such a tragedy would not have occurred, Feldway stated. And then, he stated his conclusion. I intend to reset everything, build a utopia myself, and wait for him. In a sense, it was an unwavering ideology. Since it was exactly as Dino and the others expected, they had nothing to say. Pico, who had intended to be sarcastic, was merely exasperated upon hearing an ideal bordering on delusion. Is that so? Pico acknowledged reluctantly, and Feldway's monologue resumed as if the main part was just beginning. Let us enter the main topic of the question. Oh. If Lord Veldanava had resurrected, he would surely try to stop this situation. However, the current situation is not so. Do you think this implies that this situation is exactly what he desires, or is there some other reason? What do you think? Like I'd know. Or rather, I don't see the point of bringing up hypothetical talk about if Lord Veldanava had resurrected. We just finished that topic, didn't we? Pico is right. The conclusion was that the holy remains were eaten by Ivorage, wasn't it? In fact, it has taken on Lady Lucia's form now, so Lord Veldanava's holy remains must be inside his belly too. Well, that's how it is. We have to rescue Milim and defeat Ivorage. Well, if we hang in there until Remuer-san comes, he'll probably manage the rest somehow. You're just going to show off how hard you're working until then to boost your favorability, right? You're so shrewd, Dino. Shut up, will you? You guys are on the brink too. Whether you become jobless or secure for life depends on my recommendation. Cooperate properly. We know. Leave it to us. This time, Dino and the others intended to cut off the conversation. However, Feldway still persisted. This is no time for joking. Listen, this is a serious question. If Lord Veldanava desires this situation, what do you intend to do? As the 7 primordial angels created by him, what is the correct move for us? That question revealed Feldway's heartfelt anguish. Realizing he was asking seriously, Dino and the others adjusted their attitudes. At the same time, Dino thought, good grief. So you also suspected that Lord Veldanava might have already resurrected, didn't you? I knew it. You are still suspecting it too, Dino. Feldway wore an expression of understanding. Feldway's suspicion had been triggered by Dino's remark. Because of that, he assumed Dino must still be suspicious as well. Among the 7 primordial angels, Dino had the sharpest intuition. Such intuition from Dino was not something that could be ignored. Well yeah, I do suspect that Lord Veldanava might have already resurrected. Actually, Ivorage's form is that of Lady Lucia. If the holy remains were stolen, it wouldn't have been strange for it to have taken Lord Veldanava's form. Pico and Gracia were not convinced by Dino's explanation. But, if it swallowed both of them, the probability is 50-50, right? Yeah. The basis is too weak to be certain. They voiced such negative opinions. In the first place, whether or not it mimicked their appearance from life was up to Ivorage. Even now that it had settled on Lucia's form, there was no guarantee that was the end. The possibility that it would change into Veldanava's form from here still remained fully. Their thinking was perfectly reasonable. Dino, too, had kept quiet because he lacked proof. Well, yeah was all he could respond. His true feeling was that he wanted to be wrong. That was exactly why he had turned a blind eye to that suspicion. Feldway was in a similar state of mind to Dino. Because if that were reality, everything he had done until now, and his true heartfelt wish, would all be for naught. That would become a truth Feldway did not want to admit. I don't want that, Feldway thought. Why? Why did I feel that I didn't want that? If that is God's will, should I not follow it blindly? That is the proper figure of a vassal. The ideal master-servant relationship Feldway envisioned. But, however, if that were the case, it would mean the god Feldway love no longer exists anywhere. Ah, I see, so that was it. I wanted the person I loved to resurrect. Feldway finally realized his own mistake. He had been trapped by obsession, misread his heartfelt wish, and continued on a rampage. An existence that loved and respected all life forms he created, acknowledging their free will and diversity. That was the Veldanava Feldway admired. He was absolutely different from an existence that would not stop someone wishing for the world's destruction, but simply watch from the sidelines. If so, even if Veldanava has resurrected at this moment, he could assert that it is different from the creator Feldway has been waiting for. Dino. Even if Lord Veldanava had resurrected, you have no intention of obediently following him, do you? A hypothetical question, huh? Well, that's right, but it looks like you've cleared your mind too. I won't deny it. Feldway had realized his own shallowness, but if asked whether he could draw his bow against Veldanava here and now, it was difficult to answer immediately. First, he must ascertain the truth. Instead of acting on assumptions, this time he should be thoughtful and consider the reasons behind the other's actions. Imposing or forcing one's own thoughts is the greatest factor impeding smooth communication. Only after realizing this can one respect others. Feldway had finally arrived at this fundamental way of thinking. Although he hadn't apologized yet, Feldway was thinking of reconciling with Dino and the others. Dino had said that Feldway betrayed them first. Now, Feldway could understand that those words were correct. At the very least, acting to steal Dino and the others' free will was a grave sin that could not be forgiven, no matter the excuse. Precisely because he understood that, he would not apologize yet. Because patching things up with simple words would not constitute a true apology. First, he had to win Dino and the others' trust through his attitude and his future actions. And then, I hope they will accept me as a comrade again. He could only wish. Once decided, it was time for action rather than worry. Feldway bore the responsibility for inviting the world-destroying dragon Ivorage into the cardinal world. While leaving the role of rescuing Milim to others, defeating Ivorage was Feldway's duty. I will now deal with Ivorage. That would be a problem. Suddenly, a shining existence appeared there. Though possessing looks identical to Feldway, the coloration was different. But more than that, there was a massive gap in aura and presence. As if comparing the genuine article to a fake. Releasing an overwhelming aura, it pressured the space and distorted even the light. There was no need to wonder. The identity of that existence was the very subject they had just been discussing. Veldanava himself. Lord Veldanava. Feldway hurriedly performed the highest salute for aerial encounters. On the ground, he would kneel, but in the air, standing at attention, straightening the back, bowing the head slightly, placing the right hand over the heart and the left hand near the sacrum was the formal bow. Even aligning the angle of their wings was the custom from the era of the 7 primordial angels. Dino, Pico, and Gracia also reacted instantly, just as they did in those days. Lining up with Feldway, they formed a single row and assumed the posture of respect. There was no need to doubt whether it was the real thing. That presence, the brilliance of the soul, was unmistakably identical to the Star King Dragon Veldanava. Here and now, the creator god had returned. Feldway was bewildered. Despite this being the resurrection of the master he had so longed for, the sense of joy welling up from within seemed scant. The reason lay in a single statement from Veldanava. We will let Ivorage roam free as is. That way, it saves me the trouble of the selection process. Selection, so Veldanava had declared. That implied only one thing. The purification of the cardinal world. It meant strictly selecting only those who aligned with the divine will and destroying everything else. It was identical to what Feldway had been attempting to do. And yet, Feldway's mood did not brighten. Rather than joy, a sense of sadness was welling up. No, that's not it. I just wanted someone to stop my foolish actions. Now, he understood. Feldway realized his own folly. He had been nothing more than a petulant child throwing a tantrum. He had ignored the will of his comrades, convinced that he was the only one grieving. As a result, he had selfishly rampaged out of control. Even the words of the friends who had tried to warn him had failed to reach Feldway's heart. Thinking about it calmly, it was a good thing he had been stopped before destroying the world. Even Milim, who had been in a state of rampage, had returned to her senses before causing fatal destruction. Even now, the worst possible outcome could still be prevented. Of course, Feldway's sins would not be forgiven, but that was a matter for later. Once the world was restored to its normal state, he could accept judgment in due time. That was what Feldway thought, intending to stake his life on atoning for the mistakes he had committed. However, Veldanava intended to destroy the world. That was why he had left it to Feldway until now, while Veldanava himself remained in hiding. In that case, what have I? Complex emotions intersected within Feldway's heart. He had been acting exactly as Veldanava desired, so he should feel proud he should feel that way, and yet the thought that this is wrong would not leave his mind. The reason being, that was Feldway's true sentiment. Furthermore, the greater problem was what he should do from here on out. Working for the sake of the master was the reason for the existence of the 7 angels of origin, so he ought to obey Veldanava. That should have been the correct answer, yet he could not emotionally accept it. Feldway was perplexed by this reaction within himself. And so, he was too slow to act. Before Feldway could speak, Dino made his representation. With all due respect, I object. The current world isn't bad enough to warrant destruction. In fact, even looking back through its long history, I think it is stable at a much better level. We should eliminate Ivorage immediately and restore peace to the world. Hearing this, Veldanava looked puzzled. Are you defying me? He tilted his head, looking as if he truly didn't understand why Dino would say such a thing. Veldanava let out a sigh. Good grief, are you just like Velzard? She opposed me too, though I didn't permit it. Since she wished so strongly to bring someone to the next world, I decided to humor her selfishness. I promised that I would bring along only those she had frozen. It was the moment Velzard's motivation was explained. Feldway understood that everything, including his own objectives, had been according to Veldanava's plan. Just how far into the future did that foresight extend? Feldway could only tremble in fear. And Dino, bearing the full brunt of the intimidation radiating from Veldanava, was unable to even flinch. Veldanava was not particularly angry. He was simply looking at a pawn that wouldn't move as intended with eyes that seemed to say, is it broken somewhere? That was precisely why it seemed all the more terrifying. You all were the first tools I created, you know. That's why I was thinking of taking you along with me, but... Run. Before Veldanava could finish his sentence, Feldway moved. However, he was a split second too late. Just before Feldway could shove him aside, a flash of light pierced through Dino's chest. Dino. Hey, stay with us. Pico and Gracia caught Dino to protect him. To those two, Feldway shouted. Take Dino and run. It was just like when he was the leader of the 7 angels of origin long ago. Got it, Gracia responded instantly. Don't you do anything reckless either, Feldway. Pico, too, showed an honest reaction for the first time in ages. And so, the 3 fled toward the ground. After watching them go, Veldanava turned back to Feldway. So, you are going to defy me as well? No. My loyalty remains dedicated to you alone. However, if I feel that you are mistaken, it is the duty of a subordinate to offer counsel. I shall exercise that obligation and stop you, my lord. Feldway had steeled his resolve. Having realized now that blind servitude is evil, just as Ibarra and Zalario had done, and just as Dino and the others had tried to warn him, he determined that it was now his turn. He had been defeated by Diablo and was still covered in wounds. Far from a debate about whether he could win or lose, it would likely be difficult to buy even a meager amount of time. But even so, I have to do this. The current Veldanava was clearly different from before. However, his power was the real thing. His soul held no impurity. It was beautiful and pure. And yet, there was no love to be felt from it. God was broken. When he lost his beloved Lucia, his heart core had suffered profound damage. Even if his soul were to be perfectly recreated, he had forgotten love. As a result, he had descended once more to this world as an existence akin to a completely different persona. Tears spilled from Feldway's eyes. He could not leave his master like this master, who had wandered into a labyrinth of the heart just like him, or perhaps even deeper. He did not want his master to have regrets. I will fulfill the role of surpassing the parent and save you. I swear it. Feldway made this vow. And then, he launched his challenge against the master he so revered.